All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the County of Los Angeles Citizen Redistricting Commission regular public meeting. Today is October 13th, 2021, and the time is 7:01 p.m. We will now call this regular meeting to order. As a reminder to the public, this public hearing is being recorded and live streamed to youtube.com/LA County Redistricting. The link to the recording will also be posted and accessible through the Los Angeles County Redistricting website. If at any time any members of the public has any technical difficulty, please message me, Tai Lei, and we can work towards fixing the issue. I will now take the roll. As a reminder, commissioner names will be called in a rotating alphabetical order by last name. Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Present.
Commissioner Apollonia Morales.
Present.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
Present.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpanella Segura, excused. Commissioner Hila Soto.
Present.
Commissioner Saida Soto.
Present.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
Present.
Commissioner John Bento.
Present.
Co-Chair Carolyn Williams.
Present.
Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Present.
Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Present.
Commissioner David Holtzman.
Present.
Commissioner Mary Kenny.
Present.
And Co-Chair Daniel Maeda.
Present.
Thank you. I will now turn the agenda over to Co-Chair Williams.
Thank you, Ty. The agenda is approved. There are no changes. Ty, would you review how to make a public comment, please?
Of course. So as a reminder for members of the public who are interested in making a public comment, please put into the Q&A your name, your affiliated organization, if any, and the specific agenda item you would like to make a public comment on. Once called upon, you'll be able to unmute yourself, and if you are comfortable, you may share your video. Each participant will have one opportunity to make a public comment for 2 minutes per agenda item. Again, as a reminder, we do encourage members of the public to put into the Q&A if they are interested in making a public comment, their name and the specific agenda item that they would like to make a public comment on. And then for members of the public who are calling in via phone, press *9 to raise your hand. And once called upon, press *6 to unmute and speak. Again, each person will have one opportunity to speak for 2 minutes per discussion agenda item.
Co-chairs, do you want to limit the length of the public comment? Do you want to keep the 2 minutes or the 1 minute format?
I think 1 minute will work.
Co-chair Maeda, you agree?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, I'd like to go to 1 minute for this meeting.
And the other thing I'd like to make the public know, because of the shortened time period, and in future meetings, you can use the public comment link below to submit written comments on any agenda item, and all of them will be read and posted. With that, I'll turn it back to Tai Lei to see if there are members who want to make a general public comment.
Okay, so we have potentially 2 members of the public to make who would like to make a public comment. Okay, so I'm going to put the timer on. First, we have Stuart Waldman. Stuart, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself, and if you are comfortable, you may share your video. Once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute to make your public comment.
Thank you, commissioners. Stuart Waldman from Valley Industry and Commerce Association, representing the San Fernando Valley Redistricting Coalition. We did submit maps. I think you'll be looking at them later. It's Plan 4. The question that is often asked is, why should the Valley have its own district? We believe, why not? The San Fernando Valley has always been a donor area. We've always been split into multiple districts. Some of the maps that have been submitted split the San Fernando Valley into 3 districts. We believe that you should split, that you shouldn't split the valley at all, and that the San Fernando Valley should be a starting point. We have 1.8 million people. We deserve our own district rather than being cut up. The valley is a unique area with commonalities for all throughout. We are also a majority minority area with 41% Latinos. Is that my time?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm the only one. Give me more time.
So we actually do have one other person with their hand up. I am assuming that it is for this agenda item. So Bruce M. Rowe, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself, and if you're comfortable, you may share your video. Once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute to make your public comment. Bruce, if when you're able to, please unmute yourself. And once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute to make your public comment.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I have to get to something. Just take me 1 second to do this. I have to. How do I reduce? All right. I can't get to my thing. As Sturt said, I believe that the San Fernando Valley should be one council district. If you look at a map of Council District 5, you'll see that at the very low end, of that is where I live, which is West Hills. And of course, it has commonality with some things like Canoga Park and other areas in the San Fernando Valley, but it goes all the way up into the Antelope Valley and further north. I believe that the San Fernando Valley is a unique cultural area and that it deserves to be its own council district. It has almost the ideal number of population for a council district, and it is a unique culture with unique needs and economic drivers, and it is highly diverse. And so that is my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we currently have no other members of the public for this agenda item.
Thank you.
So co-chairs, let's make it very clear now that public comment on general items are closed, and I'll go back to the PowerPoint.
Yes. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. We have been circulated to us the October 6th, 2021 draft minutes. Are there any comments, corrections, revisions on those minutes? Commissioner Holtzman.
Oh, yes, thank you, Co-Chair Maeda. Let's go to page 9 of the minutes. And if I can, I'll share my screen. I want to insert something. But first, on page 9 of the minutes, you'll see it says Commissioner Holtzman thought that the public should only have the clean slate as an option. I'd like to more fully describe what I said there. I'd like to insert a comma after option, and then the text I'm about to show on the screen. And here it is. Hello, share. There we go. Can you see the text?
Yes.
So comma at startup of the mapping software, but have access to the existing district boundaries the same way as they have access to other political boundaries, period. He said the existing districts were drawn by supervisors and are often considered to belong to supervisors, So it is difficult to have a commission that is independent of the existing supervisors if the commission gives any special treatment to the existing district boundaries. So I propose that as a revision.
Okay, let's see if there are any other comments, corrections before we put a motion in.
Commissioner Stetcher?
I was going to say that in this discussion, I had thought we'd come to the understanding that the blank map would be listed as default, and then others would be optional. And since that's been done, it seemed like that would be worth indicating as the point the discussion concluded with.
If I recall correctly, we had a discussion. We didn't actually take a vote on anything, but there did seem to be consensus, or at least significant support for having that be a result.
And if I may, that's how it is now set up. The default is the blank with the cities and the jurisdictions boundaries, and then the next option one would be with the supervisorial district, and option 2 is with the COIs. You only want to do 1 or 2 districts.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Are there any other revisions, questions, comments about these draft minutes? Seeing none, Commissioner Holtzman, do you like to make a motion to amend the minutes with your suggested revision?
Sure, so moved.
Is there a second? Commissioner Stetcher seconds. Is there any further discussion? Take roll, please.
Okay, commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. I will now take roll call. Commissioner Apollonia Morales.
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
Yes.
Commissioner Hila Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Saito Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
Yes.
Commissioner John Bento.
Yes.
Co-Chair Carolyn Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Yes.
Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Yes.
Commissioner David Holtzman.
Yes.
Commissioner Mary Kenny.
Yes.
Co-Chair Daniel Maeda.
Aye.
And Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Move for approval.
Motion passes.
Commissioner Holtzman, would you email me the text so we could incorporate it into the final minutes?
I will do that.
Thank you.
Next agenda item. We're to continue our discussions about the communities of interest, the COI maps, and possible direction to ArcBridge regarding revisions to those maps. I want to have 2 parts to this. First, to find out how get a report from the lead of the ad hoc working group on mapping, Hila Soto, and then have the presentation by ArcBridge of the COI maps. And so, Commissioner Soto.
Yes, good evening, co-chairs and the commission. Let me see if I could turn on my camera. Yes, so I'm along with my fellow commissioners met and discussed, went over all of the COI comments. We re-reviewed them. At that time, after lengthy discussion, we went back and I suggested that we return and that I propose maybe drawing some COIs based on the descriptions, and I work with ArcBridge, with Pretty and Michaela to kind of visually interpret all the COIs into a map. And this morning I met with Pretty once again to go over the communities of interest, kind of define them, put them into a little bit more compact groups, And this is what's being shown today, this raw model for the commission to review and the public to review and provide input. It was a bit of a challenge just because a lot of descriptions had some neighborhoods, but omitted some of the unincorporated areas. So we had to interpret maybe the intent, and hopefully we'll have good feedback so we could refine these committees of interest. And that's it. Thank you.
For clarification, Commissioner Soto, you were informed by the last meeting's discussion by the commission of the various COI hypotheses?
Yes.
Okay. I guess we should see if there are questions or clarifications from the commission before we probably we should do that, and then we'll have Preeti provide the ARC Bridge presentation and then public comment.
So Co-Chair Maeda, may be good to have Preeti do, because she has the slides blown up a little bit more and can go into each of the areas. And then I think the clarification might be a more natural flow then, because they'll see it better.
Okay. Any objections to that? Why don't we do that then? Preeti, why don't you provide that presentation?
And while Preeti is pulling it up, the other thing that ArcBridge did is they did draw to the letter the COIs that each of the teams had developed. And they had gone over that with the ad hoc working group. And there, it was quite clear where there were some holes where we hadn't heard from certain communities, but they were surrounded by other areas that we had heard from, which is why you'll see they're colored in at this point.
Great.
We do have a hand from Commissioner Holtzman.
Commissioner Holtzman, is a clarification?
Yeah, are we looking at this one-page PDF we got that's labeled Communities of Interest 101321?
I believe that's the beginning of a presentation.
Yeah. Preeti's going to go through more of the details so you can see more closely, Commissioner Holtzman.
Okay, just the clarification then. Isn't it true that these community of interest maps that we're developing are not actually single communities of interest? They're communities of interest that are grouped together because we think these various communities go together. They're not all single communities of interest. Some of them may be, but I'd like to clarify that. And then also the label of that map should say maybe communities of interest instead of interests, plural. So those are that's what I want to clarify.
Well, we'll see. I think it might become more clear as we look at the maps.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to start with the PowerPoint and actually go into the map where I can zoom in and show you how we built the communities of interest. We came up with about 27 unique communities of interest. And this is an overview of the map, and I'm going to go into more details soon. And I just wanted to show you that we have North, Central, South, and we have this as a PowerPoint. And then we also have a population for each of the community of interest. So with this, I'm going to share my map. Okay, just bear with me. Sometimes the application. All right, so these are the communities of interest. And the way we have done them, we have combined the work of all the 5 teams to develop this compact map. And I can just kind of go from one part of the county. So we have Antelope Valley and then Santa Clarita Valley. Then we have Palmdale, Lancaster, and we labeled it AV because it's a part of Antelope Valley. Then we had community of interest comments from Little Rock, Pear Blossom. And like Gela said, we included all the unincorporated areas so that we would not leave holes in those communities of interest. So then we came here and we got the San Fernando Valley, all the cities. And as we zoom in, you can see all the cities which are part of San Fernando Valley. So as I'm zooming in, you can see all the cities which are included in the San Fernando Valley. And then we have the tri-cities of Burbank, Glendale, and Pasadena. And what we also did was we included Altadena and La Canada here because they were not mentioned, but then we did not want to leave a hole there. So we included them in the Tri-City community of interest. Then we move west here, we get the San Gabriel Valley. And here, as I zoom in, you can see all the cities which are included. And so here we have all these cities included. And so we have a whole list of all the cities that are part of the San Gabriel Valley. Then we had South Pasadena, Eagle Rock, and these were communities that we worked with Commissioner Soto and with Gela, and we felt that it would be a good idea to make it South Pasadena, Eagle Rock, or we could have included it in Pasadena, but we felt that based on all the comments, that this would be a good community of interest by itself. Then coming down here, we get East LA. And in East LA, we have included these cities and unincorporated areas. Then we come over to the west. And here we have Dodger Stadium Park area. And you can see the cities which we have included in this. Then we come to West LA, Los Feliz. And you can see the cities that we have included in this. Beverly Hills, Westwood, Century City, West Los Angeles. So from then on, we came here to Malibu, Topanga area. And we included the cities of Agoura Hills, Calabasas, Hidden Hills, Westlake Village, Santa Monica Mountains, Malibu. And from there on, we came to Pacific Palisades, which we thought could be a part of Malibu, could be a part of seaside communities, but then we decided to keep it as a community of interest by itself. Then the seaside communities are from Santa Monica, Marina del Rey, El Segundo, all the way up to Rancho Palo Verdes, Torrance. And then we had Baldwin Hills, Baldwin Hills included West Adams, Mid-City, Crestview, Palms, Ladera Heights, Windsor Hills. And from there, we go south here, and we have the Inglewood, Crenshaw, Limert Park. Then we come to South LA, and we have all these cities included. And we came up here and we defined an area for USC. That includes Jefferson Park, University Park, LA Central. And then we had downtown LA and Chinatown. And then we had this area that we called west of DTLA, downtown LA, which includes Koreatown, Harvard Heights, Wilshire Center, Westlake, Co-Union. And from there, we come to Southeast LA. And Southeast LA has Commerce, it has Maywood, Huntington Park, Southgate, Florence Firestone, Linwood. And from there, we come to the east to the greater Whittier area. And here, we have all these cities that we included in that. And we got the unincorporated Whittier, North Whittier. And this part, it may look a little funky, but the city of industry goes. And this is how we decided to include city of industry into San Gabriel Valley. So that's that. Then we have the gateway cities that you can see. Then we come to Long Beach, and we have the city of Signal Hill included in that. We come to San Pedro, Carson, Compton, Gardena area. And you can see the cities which are included in that. Rancho Dominguez, Compton, Athens Village, city of Gardena, West Carson, Harbor Gateway. And that makes up 27 unique communities of interest. And like Hila says, and like Commissioner Soto says, that this is our straw model. And this is something that we would like you to review and the community to review as well and give us comments. And that is all that I had for the communities of interest, which was based on all the community comments, all the hard work that all the 5 teams had done. And Commissioner Soto and Hila, we all worked on it to produce this model for you.
Thank you, Preeti. So I'm sure there will be some comments or questions for clarification, and we want to take public comment. But before we open it up, just want to make some initial points. I think maybe it'll address some of the questions I'm sure other commissioners have as well. So in many cases, as we saw last week, the communities of interest input that the various teams received conflicted. Is it correct that this map that you're showing us, the straw map, is an attempt to in some way harmonize and sort of group different communities so that there's no overlaps between the various communities?
That's correct. This map does not have any overlaps. And all the unincorporated areas, any holes, we filled them in.
Right. So, so as an example, for instance, there's a significant public input that said we want the whole valley, the whole San Fernando Valley kept together, including Burbank and Glendale. And this map has Burbank, Glendale, Pasadena as a Tri-Cities community of interest. So it does not reflect the community of interest that was expressed that is for the whole valley. That's just one example, right?
Yeah, the whole goal is not to have any overlaps. So, yeah.
Well, okay. I mean, that obviously you can't have overlaps when we're drawing the 5 district maps. But in the process of trying to arrive at what communities make sense, I think it's a reasonable question someone may ask to say, well, this doesn't reflect a particular view of the world, or for instance, Santa Clarita Valley, there was community of interest input to say Santa Clarita should be kept with Lancaster Palmdale, one, kept in the same district. This is not a district map, right? These are communities of interest, but some folks had said that as, that was one of their comments that we heard actually repeatedly. So I just wanted everyone to understand, the public to understand as well, that this straw map does not provide for overlaps. And it may well be that that overlaps, people want to see different options on these various straw communities of interest. Okay, why don't we take one round of commissioner comments, clarification questions. And if you could limit it to clarifications before we take public comment, I'd appreciate it. So Ty, why don't you, if you would call on folks.
So we have Commissioner Stetcher and Commissioner Morales.
I was going to ask if you could zoom out so that we can see 90% of the county and hold it there for a little while we're talking about it. So I can kind of digest it better. My one clarification isn't really a question. It is a response to what Co-Chair Maeda just said. And that is that if you think of these as potential building blocks, then you can combine a couple to create a larger community like San Fernando Valley plus the Tri-Cities. And I think the effort was to create the most widely heard and commonly identified communities of interest in their unoverlapping glory. And so this gives us flexibility, I believe, if we want to try to preserve these, to think of how we can combine them in multiple ways in different plans for the county.
Commissioner Morales, then Commissioner Kenny.
Yeah, just wondering what happened to Carolyn Island. Just there it is.
Part of Long Beach.
Okay.
I see Commissioner Kenny has taken her hand down. So Commissioner Holtzman.
All right, then. So just clarify, I think you said at the last meeting that you could portray overlaps on a map like this with like cross-hatching or something like that. Where are you with that project?
We looked at that, and the goal for today to consolidate all the communities of interest was to make a straw model with no overlap and no holes. So this is one map. We have kept the work done by each team So we have that as well, which has overlap, and which hopefully we will be presenting, creating a map and being able to share with you.
All right, thank you. And so can we call these areas on the map here like hypothesized COI groupings? Because a lot of the areas are not actually individual communities of interest. They're groupings of communities of interest that we thought went together. I don't think we should necessarily count them for the purposes of the statute or for the purposes, of nomenclature here. Single communities of interest. Can we call them communities of interest groupings?
Sure.
That seems accurate.
Thank you. And the last question is, how can a user load what you presented here into our redistricting software and essentially play with, adjust boundaries and save, different versions and maybe share with colleagues or whoever? How can users use this? How can users use this? That's my question.
Well, this is something that I would work with ISD on. We could have it as a reference layer, just like you have so many reference layers. You could have that, and you could work from there.
You can't save it to one of the groups that would have public access, so we can actually load the shapefiles and use them.
I could, sure. It's a shapefile that I have, and I can share it with you all. Yeah.
I would appreciate that. I would appreciate that, because I just haven't had much time to look at all this. I might have suggested slight modifications, but overall, it was a pretty good reflection. Thank you.
I believe there are no more hands from commissioners.
Let's take public comment then, if any.
So just as a reminder for members of the public who are interested in making a public comment, please put your name into the Q&A and the specific agenda item you would like to make a public comment on. Each person will have one opportunity to make one 1-minute public comment for each agenda item. So we have Stuart Waldman. So Stuart, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself, and if you're comfortable, you may share your video. Once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute to make your public comment.
Thank you. Once again, Stuart Waldman, San Fernando Valley Redistricting Commission. I too agree that the communities of interest, when you have Burbank and Glendale, which are in the San Fernando Valley in a separate community of interest and put away from the San Fernando Valley, it's confusing. You do have building blocks. You could take the San Fernando Valley that you're showing there, Burbank, Glendale, and you could take the Agora Hills, Calabasas, COG, including Malibu, and put them together into one single district that makes up the population that you need. I should also mention that Calabasas, Malibu, Agora Hills, Hidden Hills are all part of a council of governments and would like to be together, and we'd love to keep them in the San Fernando Valley as well. 2 seconds to spare.
Great, thank you. Okay. I believe we have no other member of the public interested in making a public comment for this agenda item.
Okay, public comment then on this item is closed. Let's go round robin to get commissioner comments on what we've seen from Priti tonight.
So as a reminder, we will go in rotating alphabetical order. First, we have Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
Yeah, no, I mean, when I look at this, the communities of interest, I mean, the word, and maybe what Commissioner Holtzman said, groupings, because I think that's really what we're trying to do is get grouping, because we're going to try to create 27 in a sense, fits into 5. In looking at the Eagle Rock COI, we're kind of separating Northeast LA from East LA. And Northeast LA belongs to LA City and is more common community of interest. If we use that word, there is definitely more community of interest from Eagle Rock, Highland Park towards Lincoln Heights and Boyle Heights. To community of interest, to say Highland Park and San Marino are communities of interest ain't quite right. But if we, so in looking at that South Pass Eagle Rock community of interest, I could see where we could divide it, and Northeast LA kind of lump with East LA. And yeah, if we could zoom in on it, you could see what I speak on.
We'd need to use Pretty's map to do that. I thought it might be big enough. It's not. I'll stop this.
The other one showed it well when we zoomed in on them. Yeah, that gray blue area. Yeah, you can kind of see that you can kind of see a natural divide there with South Pasadena, city of South Pasadena and San Marino. I see a community of interest there, definitely. But Northeast LA really should be kind of more lumped with East LA. When I look at this communities of interest, especially if we're using those words, communities of interest versus grouping. Because if we use the word grouping, yeah, we might have to do something to try to bring it to a 5. And I'm just looking at these, because some of these communities of interest that were created, I could see are going to have to be maybe divided, and there could be when we push on to creating 5 districts. And I'm using Eagle Rock here as an example. The Eagle Rock, Glassell Park, Mount Washington, those are all communities within Los Angeles City. And to kind of separate Highland Park and Lincoln Heights, El Sereno, there's, again, they're all in the same city of Los Angeles. I could see where we would do a community of interest where city of South Pasadena and San Marino are more included, probably lumping in with Alhambra and San Gabriel. But, this is all the problems that we might have in communities of interest. Thank you.
Commissioner Obregon, if I may, these gray areas, Pretty should have pointed out, were areas that were debated about which area they should go with. So I think, Pretty, you kept all the areas gray that could have potential overlapping, because there was a lot of discussion about should San Marino, South Pasadena go with Pasadena or with Alhambra, San Gabriel, and the same thing about Eagle Rock, should it head south. So you'll see other areas that are also gray. And I might suggest it could be useful to do 2 or 3, versions, because I don't want you all to lock into one version and think this is it, because there are a number of these gray areas, to Commissioner Obregon's point.
Yeah, this is our first model, so yeah.
Next, we have Commissioner Hila Soto.
Yes, thank you. Going through this exercise was challenging, just because trying to interpret those communities of interest and put them on a digital format, a map for people to interpret. And one of the concerns, or there was a lot of public testimony to include East LA, Boyle Heights, City Terrace, Lincoln Heights, with Southeast LA. So that was, so as we were going through the exercise, doing these communities of interest, we're trying to put, at least the intent, my intent was just to do it as compact as possible, because then at least it's a little bit easier to kind of see these smaller communities, and then maybe they could be put together. Maybe we could, in a further exercise, we could maybe put them smaller, and then if we think they're going to be similar, maybe shade them in similar hues. Maybe it might make it a little bit easier for us to visualize, okay, what might connect. So that was one of the challenges. So there were a lot of comments. I know Eagle Rock and Commissioner Obregon, you're very familiar with that area. So it's important to have all of our knowledge put in, and then we can make those adjustments, because collectively we can make this better, I think. So I think that was maybe the intent, and hopefully we'll work around and see what makes sense. So I tried to kind of put them as small as possible. And you're right, maybe like South Pasadena, San Marino could be separated and either put in with Pasadena or put them with San Gabriel Valley. And I know Co-Chair Maeda mentioned earlier about the Glendale, Burbank, Pasadena. So there were, I remember vividly, a lot of public comments that came in and ready testimony that was submitted about putting those three cities together. But there were also comments to put Glendale, Burbank into the San Fernando Valley. So that's why, we could have that open discussion. Does it make sense? And then we have that area to the north, La Cañada, Flint Ridge, La Crescenta, which are kind of the unincorporated areas that weren't mentioned explicitly, but they were kind of abut the Antelope Valley. So I think it makes sense just to kind of group them together, and hopefully this will spark interest so we can get the public to let us know, okay, is this right? Maybe La Cañada, Flint Ridge residents, maybe they identify more with the Mount Wilson, Antelope Valley area. So that's, hopefully that helps clarify some of the thought process. Thank you.
Commissioner Soto.
Thank you for providing this visual. It's really helpful. And I appreciate, Gayla, your idea to perhaps, certainly not to sort of get so stuck on this first iteration, and the idea that we may draft other versions with overlap. Because I think the task to great extent for us is where there wasn't public input, where communities of interest didn't come forward to define themselves and to sort of group themselves. Then I think there's the task we have of figuring out how we define communities of interest, right? Like we had some communities that came through and talked about the environmental issues that they are addressing with other communities, Southeast, etc. Socioeconomic issues, public services that they share, and then we had others that just did not, right? So certainly I think I saw San Marino, South Pasadena grouped with some of these cities that are part of the Northeast LA, and I thought, well, what was the criteria we utilized to group them as communities of interest? So again, I think I'm looking forward to digging in a little further, and hopefully, getting down to maybe more specificity, and maybe discussing again, what's the criteria we will use to define communities of interest where they didn't come forth to provide input.
Commissioner Stetcher.
Thank you. This is very interesting and helpful. My concern, or the thing that I'm thinking about, is what do we do next? And I don't think we should devote 2 weeks to making this map as perfect as it can be, because we need to devote as much time as possible to looking at plans. I think we should do one more iteration of this in which people like Commissioner Obregon and Commissioner Soto, who are familiar with particular areas or who reviewed the COI comments, come in and say, take San Marino out and attach it to this other place, and give us specific suggestions for modifications. I don't know the best way to do that procedurally, but I would hope that by next week, we could get input from all of us, fine tune this a little bit more, and then have it be there as something to reflect on when we start to look at full plans. When we see a plan that slices one of these in half, it should raise our hackles and make us think carefully about whether that accomplishes what we want to accomplish or not. So maybe it would be nice if we could each get a copy of this, look at it and zoom it into the areas we're familiar with, and then send in or share publicly our suggestions for places where it needs to be tweaked.
Next, we have Commissioner Bento.
I agree with everything with what Commissioner Stetzer just said. I think that that's really important, and I support his suggestion.
Next, we have Co-Chair Carolyn Williams.
One of the, I like the map. I think, I'm very visual. This helps us look at it. And I wanted to see more of where the gray areas are. Can you maybe zoom out a little bit more so that we can see where they are? But I also like Commissioner Stetzer's suggestion, because we need to continue to move. And this is like a straw map. This is the first cut at the information that we have based on the info from the 5 working groups. And it gives us a good place to start. And I think we all have some input into what we think might work. But this map, again, will be used as we start to draw larger maps. And if we see communities of interest being split, we have a basis for saying, for providing a reason why we need to keep these areas together. So I appreciate the map. I want to thank the working group for putting this together, especially the lead, Commissioner Soto, Gayla, and Pretty.
Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Yes, yes, I agree that having this map is really helpful. Having seen what we were looking at in the work group and then seeing this is this is much easier to kind of look at and get a sense of where the communities of interest are. I agree, that we will probably have to adjust this. Yeah, I also agree with Commissioner Stetzer's suggestion about trying to provide input into this. The one other suggestion that I also liked was Gayla's suggestion that this is just one map. I think there may be, there's not as much, well, there can be a lot of overlap, but I think that there is less overlap for some areas, and it wouldn't be a bad idea to have maybe 2 or 3 another version of this with other combinations of where the obvious overlaps were. For instance, for some of the comments that were repeated about keeping South LA, Northeast LA, and Southeast LA together, it might be useful to see, some larger groupings like that, similar to how we have put together San Gabriel Valley. But I don't think we need to go through multiple versions of this, but I don't think it'll hurt to just have maybe another 1 or 2 more, and then do what Commissioner Stetzer was suggesting, and then tweaking tweaking the different maps that we may think are more reflective of the comments. We have some submitted maps, and this will, I think, help us when we kind of overlay those maps with what we have for the communities of interest maps. I think this will help direct us as to which maps may be more closer to what we may be interested in tweaking. So that's my suggestion.
Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Yes, thank you to Commissioner Hila Soto and to Priti and Gayla for coming up with this wonderful visual. What I see in this is a compilation of all of the public and written comments that have taken place over our 12 public hearings. And it's great to see this straw map laid out in such a way that I can hear and see what the people and their comments. And also, this first straw map lets the public know that we've heard them and we paid attention to what they have made their suggestions to us about. So I also like the fact that Co-Chair Maeda so amply described this map as harmony and groupings. So it is a harmonious and grouping of these COIs. However, there's no overlap. I can see, the fact of Long Beach and looking, and I'm hearing about Linwood. Remember, we had a lot of comments regarding Linwood and where the public or the community wanted Linwood to be. Had a lot of comments about East LA, and not grouping certain communities with East LA. So this is a wonderful job. Thank you again, Commissioner Hila Soto and Priti and Gayla for this, and the mapping committee that was a part of this as well. Thank you.
Commissioner Holtzman.
Like Commissioner Franklin, I am very pleased to see maps coming out of the work we've done and the input we've got. So again, I jumped the gun a little bit before I said it was pretty good representation of what we've heard. That was not a question for clarification, but that's really my feeling here. I will be continuing to look at this. I do think I'll probably have a couple of revisions that I'll want to suggest, and I like the Stetcher Vento, I think it was Sarasota idea of doing another round with this, but maybe not going around forever and ever. Just looking at it, I'm thinking maybe Santa Monica needs to be able to be its own little area. Not sure where we're going to want to put that. That's a big area, the seaside area. But anyway, we'll talk more about that next time we meet. First of all, I'm open to having a special meeting soon for commissioners to share more considered reactions to this, because we haven't seen it very much. And then finish that one round that Commissioner Stetcher brought up. And a request to our demographers and mappers, as you come up with new maps that you're going to present, please put the shape files right away in a place where we and the public can get them, so we can see them, as far in advance of your presentations as possible. And that's it for now. Thank you again.
Commissioner Kenny.
Well, I think that when we look at the details of this, we're all going to have comments on various parts of the city. I think San Marino is part of the San Gabriel Valley. I think Pasadena is part of the San Gabriel Valley. We didn't get any comments from Pasadena. I think that I really do compliment people on putting this together, because you know, you have to put all the data together and come up with something. And this is a useful backdrop to the work that we're going to do moving forward. I guess I kind of share Commissioner Stetcher's point that maybe the sooner we can move on to looking at creating the districts, the more time we'll have to finesse the district boundaries, because we could spend a lot of time talking about, for instance, the boundaries of the USC area, but when you start trying to come up with 5 districts, that whole area may get subsumed into a larger area and the discussion would become irrelevant.
We have co-chair Daniel Maida.
So first, kudos to the mapping working group, especially its lead, and Priti and Gayla for coming up with this map. I think you're hearing Commissioner's appreciation and admiration for the way you're able to take a mass of data and make it something that we can visualize. Just caution, especially for members of the public as well as the commission, we haven't adopted anything. This is a straw map for visualization purposes. You've already heard some people wanting to tinker with the edges. That is perfectly fine. I think we should all do that, take a closer look. You know, but I have to agree with Commissioner Kenny. If we were trying to draw 27 supervisorial districts, this is great. Let's start with these and tinker and get them perfect. We don't have that. We have 5. So lots more grouping is going to be needed, but this is obviously very useful for just conceptualizing our task ahead. A couple of comments that I do want to make, though. So as much as I like the consolidation of many of these ideas that we had discussed last week into a visual form with no overlaps, some things are lost. And we all need to think about if there really needs to be something that is not reflected in this, has been erased by this or overlooked or whatever, then it's a serious enough thing. We should bring it to the fore and we'll have some discussion about it. Just as one example, we heard a very strong, or I won't say strong, but many comments about how the San Fernando Valley, you know, we certainly heard San Fernando Valley should be kept whole. But the counter argument to that was there are working class portions of the San Fernando Valley that don't feel they belong with other parts of San Fernando Valley. And this grouping does not reflect that in any way. We should consider whether to have an overlay or some other thing to think about when we're talking about ultimately drawing 5 districts. There's certain areas we had virtually no input on, but yet they're reflected on the map as they should be, as opposed to having a whole. But this is a call out to the public. If you're in Pacific Palisades, South Pasadena, USC area, west of downtown LA, a lot of these places, we really heard virtually nothing. And, you know, are those areas sensibly areas we should consider, or should they be grouped elsewhere? There's a giant Hollywood, West LA, Los Feliz, grouping there. I actually didn't hear anybody say they want Hollywood with West LA. So is that a sensible grouping? We should think about that. Eagle Rock, South Pasadena. I didn't really hear people saying Eagle Rock and South Pasadena belong together. I did hear people say Eagle Rock, Highland Park, East LA. I recognize it's a swing district or a swing zone or whatever you want to call it, could go different places, but that's something we should consider. So I agree with Commissioner Stetcher. I do think it's useful for us each to take a look at this if we get this kind of COI groupings map, straw map. We should also get the population chart. I think Priti showed us that as well. We should all get that so we get some sense of the scale that's involved. We should try to fine tune this sort of integrated, non-overlapping map. But at the same time, we should, if we feel strongly about certain things that we think are missing, we should say, and we need this other possible, alternative, as Commissioner Wong says, maybe there's alternative maps we should look at, or alternative overlays, or something, other ideas that have not yet been captured in this very admirable attempt to harmonize all the different the things that we've heard. So my suggestion is for each of us to take a good hard look at the things that we said in the last week, the folks in the team said last week, and probably the best way is to maybe provide input to the working group. I guess I would propose that maybe that's a way to move the ball a little bit. As well as maybe suggest certain other kinds of things that they want to see as possible, I don't know what you would call them, overlays or alternatives to this groupings, COI groupings map. But otherwise, I mean, it's really very useful to me, at least, to get a sense of where these things are. And it helps me visualize it helps me visualize the COI discussion we had. And then I'm sure the next item is going to be looking at some of the maps. I think we'll all see that, in fact, the way we're doing this is actually pretty useful in terms of evaluating those maps. Thank you.
Co-Chair Maeda, before we go on to Commissioner Mendoza, our working group is meeting next Monday. So if any commissioners want to send suggestions, I've been making notes of some of the tweaks and adjustments that have been raised in this meeting. But if you could get them to us, let's say by 2:00 on Monday, our group can do that. And we can also have this posted as a COI map, indicate that's the draft as of October 13th on the hub. So if any members of the commission or the public would like to tweak with it and resubmit, that would be fine too.
One thing I did forget to mention was Co-Chair Williams and I are seeing this thing for the very first time. So we deliberately, unlike for past other working groups where there was like a co-chair liaison or whatever, we are concerned about the maximum number of commissioners having eyes on any one thing. So we're seeing it for the first time, and we're trying to stay out of that if we can. But fantastic job, guys.
So we do have a hand from a commissioner, but do we want to continue on or take the hand?
One more commissioner, right?
Oh, no, we have two more, but we also have a hand from a commissioner.
This is a clarifying question.
Okay.
Which is, to whom should the comments be addressed?
Why don't you email them to me and I'll compile them for the working group so they don't have to be inundated.
I think that's the safest as well, to just send them to Gayla, that she'll give them to the working group.
Next, we have Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Thank you. The straw maps of the community interests are most helpful to me, and that's what I'm hearing as I listen. I too am a visual person, and there's no question we need to evaluate and consider the public comments, and we've done that in the working groups, and now we have a representation of what we believe as we synthesize this information. What we were hearing. But I also think, at least to my mind, that we also need to keep in mind that if we got 1,000 comments, and I don't think we did, that would represent 1/10,000th of 1% of the population that we're representing, and for whom we're drawing boundaries, district lines. So as we drive this proverbial car that's been talked about, and we check the gauges and the instruments, let's just be very careful to not overemphasize one thing, but we have a really good starting point here. And what I also was thinking about that was stated by one of the individuals from the public making a comment talking about Council of Governments. Well, I'm familiar with the San Gabriel Council of Government, Mid-Cities Council of Government. There's others as well. And I was starting to think, well, gee, what are the other layers that we have available to us? The contract cities that contract for police and fire protection, could we plot them? The cities that have their own fire, police and fire departments, could we plot that and have all these different overlays? What other tools do we have and indicators that we can look at to start making some really good, decisions about what is in the best interest of all concerned? So I guess that's what I'm thinking about now, because one of the things that was stated a few minutes ago was that, oh, we filled in this hole over here and we did that. That's great. There's going to be a tremendous amount of subjectivity. And I'm very confident that the 14 commissioners, as well as the executive director's assistants, with the executive director's assistants, we can really do a fantastic job and have really good reasons for the decisions that are made. So I just want to make sure that if there's much more information, as I call what I'm calling the overlays, if that's the right terminology, that we have that so that we can use everything at our disposal to make really good decisions. Thank you.
Commissioner Apollonia Morales.
Yeah, I just had a question because we did mention gray areas, and some of those gray areas not reflected in this particular map is Monterey Park, Montebello, keeping them together. They're in two different communities of interest. The Whittier Pico Rivera question as well, that's not in gray. That's also a big question. Folks are, either they do belong together or they don't belong together. And then the other piece is Duarte. There was some comments made about that being included. I don't see it on the map, but I just wanted to highlight that these are some of the considerations that we still have to make to figure out. And I don't know how we figure that out, right? I'm sure there was some kind of a little bit of haggling back and forth and just like for simplicity's sake, but these were some of the issues that were raised. So I just want to make sure, like, at the end of the day, there is a rationale. Yeah, so those are just my comments. We don't have to answer the questions here, but, just definitely consider that.
So Commissioner Morales, I got Monterey Park, Montebello, Pico Rivera. I missed the fourth one. Was it Watts?
No, it's Whittier, Pico Rivera, Monterey Park, Montebello, and Duarte up there by Monrovia.
Okay, thank you.
So all commissioners have now spoken.
Any other commissioner would like to make a short additional remarks after hearing from their fellow commissioners?
We have Commissioner Holtzman and Commissioner Soto.
All right, I'll go first quickly. Please get public input, post the notice for public input to this mapping working group before it meets next. And also please post all input to that working group, whether it's from commissioners or the public, as supporting material for our next commission meeting. So people can see that before the full commission meets again. Thank you.
Commissioner Soto.
Commissioner Mendoza's thoughts and feedback definitely prompted a question for me, which is exactly that. What might be some overlays that we have access to? So I'm thinking about comments provided by the public where they stated resources that are valuable in their communities or resources that may have at some point been redistricted out of their communities. So thinking about things such as parks, right? We're thinking about hospitals, etc. Like, what is the point in our process during which we will be focusing in on that? Doesn't seem to me it's this now, right? It can be. I think if we thought about, well, let's really look at these communities of interest groupings and what kind of resources are critical for them to have access to, and that we want to be mindful of not redistricting out and leaving the district without any hospitals or parks or just essential services in places that provide for basic needs.
So we, in fact, are going to be discussing some of those data, what they are, how they should be made available, things like that, in a few minutes, basically, in an upcoming agenda item.
Thank you.
Commissioner Stetcher?
Thank you. Just clarification, before we're done tonight, will it be clear to us how we get access to this map so that we can review it and send any suggestions to Gayla to forward to the working group?
The map and population chart.
So if I may, Priti, I believe you can go ahead and post this to the hub. I'm going to have Ty later show everybody the structure of the hub. There's a section at the bottom of a COI map. So I think we should post this as COI groupings, linked to our hypotheses as a draft as of October 13th. Then you can work with it, I believe. The second part is to let me know by noon on Monday any tweaks you want me to bring to the working group on Monday to do another pass of this. Ty and Priti, can you confirm that we can post this to the hub?
I can provide it to Ty and Ty can post it on the hub. And the data and the PowerPoint slide that I shared with you is already, I believe, on the website. And
the meeting, yeah.
Yeah, and a large scale PDF map, which you can zoom in and see everything has already been provided. And I believe it's on the web as well.
Yeah. So part of the turnaround on this was the working group met on Tuesday, provided input, then ArcBridge with Priti Mather, Commissioner Hila, Soto, myself met this morning. So this is sort of fresh off the press, but it's a starting point.
And in addition, so it will be on the hub, but for commissioners who would like to play with it on the software, then Priti will need to share it with everyone. And again, all users on the software will have access to the group called Everyone, with any plans that are shared to that group as well.
I think that'd be fine to share with everyone. That's a great way for us to get public input too.
Sure.
Any concerns from any of the commissioners if we just open it up to the public as part of our transparency?
Yeah, as long as the public there's some markings indicating that this is not something the commission has approved,
draft.
Adopted. It's a draft, it's a straw, whatever terminology. So it's clear. This is discussion purposes, basically. Okay, fantastic. Let's move to the next agenda item.
Okay, this agenda item, I'm waiting for the PowerPoint. Okay.
Yeah, hold on.
Well, this agenda item gives us an opportunity, just as we just did, we looked at the maps of the communities of interest. This will give us an opportunity to look at the maps that have been submitted by the public and to look at them and have a discussion about them and give possible direction to ArcBridge about where we want to head and the considerations. First, we'll have a presentation by ArcBridge and they'll review the maps. Priti will review the maps that have been submitted. And then we'll have some additional discussion on that public input and timing for the commission, for posting of commissioner prepared map options. And I believe, Gayla, we start with Priti's presentation, or did you have?
And no, I think we should start with Priti, something for the commission to think about after they look at the maps submitted so far. Our thinking was at each meeting, we would have ArcBridge go over the maps submitted to date. So far, we have 5. One came in today. She's prepared to go over the four that were submitted by close of business yesterday. But we also have received maps from commissioners. So something I want you to think about is a thought is for us to wait to post the commissioner maps for at least 2 weeks so we can receive the public maps. And that way, and then have the commissioner maps that have been submitted come up, let's say on October 25th, when you start looking at map options. The reason is we don't want to bias the public. If the commissioners start sharing their maps, we also don't want the public to think it's already a done deal. So something for you to think about, and we can come back to this item if you really want us to post them as soon as we get them, or just wait until October 25th and then put the commissioner maps up. So that's the second part of it. But why don't I close my screen and we can turn it over to Priti to go through what has been received from the public so far.
Okay, great.
Let me share the right PowerPoint.
Priti, can you put it on the screen, the large? Yes. Whoops.
1 second. I'm just getting the right one. All right, so this so far, like Gayla said, we have received 5 maps. And by the time I was working on this, I had seen only 4. So the 5th one would be evaluated later. So here in a screenshot, I have all the 4 plans that were submitted. And you can see them, how they give the different numbers to different districts. And at a glance, you can see what they look like. And I will show you what we looked at initially. So one of the things that we looked at was the maximum deviation. So in this particular plan, this is plan 1, and I believe this is submitted by citizen Josh Keeler. And the maximum deviation is 8.92. And he has 3 districts, which are Latino majority districts. 2, 3, and 4.
What's the allowable maximum deviation?
10%. It should be under 10%. Okay. So here, 2, 3, and 4 are Latino majority districts. Other than that, we have plans to look at the racial distribution, racial ethnic distribution and some other things that we are looking at. But initially, these are the 2 things that we are reporting today. Plan 2, this has a real good maximum deviation, which is 2.17. And it has 3 Latino majority districts. And I believe this is by Mr. Clayton. And the maximum deviation is really good. And it does have 3 Latino districts. And there is, Plan 3. This one does not have any majority minority districts. It has some plurality, but no majority. So we did not put that here. The maximum deviation is really good. And now, since you've been thinking about the COIs, you can see where the COIs that we talked about, that they may be split. So one of the things that we are going to evaluate is like how many COIs were split or how many cities were split. But so far, this is what we have. And this is by a citizen called Carpatrian. And Plan 4 is by Mr. Waldman, who had some questions and presentations before. And this one has a real good maximum deviation of 1.55, and it has 2 Latino majority districts. So these are the 4 plans, and there is a 5th one, like we said, but we did not get it in time to include in the presentation today.
Thank you, Pretty. Now we have clarifying questions from the commission. I see, and Ty, can you call on those? I see 3 hands raised, but
Hey, Veronica, do you want to go in alphabetical order and call on everyone?
yeah, let's do a round.
Great. So Co-Chair Williams, we want to do a round robin. Is that what you said?
Yeah, let's do a round robin on these.
Okay. So we'll start off with Commissioner Hila Soto.
Yeah, so I think it's good that we started receiving plans. That's exciting. I guess this is going to be where all the hard work is going to be put into. My concern is just right now to be able to effectively critique any of the plans or evaluate them. I think it might be good to, until we have a better footing on the COI maps, at least those communities of interest, because once we have those overlaid, I think, I don't know, we might see that some communities might be split. So I just want to make sure at least that before we review any further, and Pretty already mentioned that she could provide an analysis on how many cities were split or how many, once we kind of refine, I don't think we're going to have definitive COI maps, but at least a better sense of them, especially once we receive public input within the next week or so, just so that way we could evaluate them a little bit more objectively. That's it. Thank you.
A point of order, Madam Chair. Isn't this supposed to be a round of clarifying questions? I didn't hear any questions there.
This is clarifying questions. Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Next, we have Commissioner Saida Soto.
And I will keep it to a clarifying question. I can't fully see here, but was Catalina Island included in all of these plans?
It was.
Okay.
It was.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and last clarifying question. Remind me, so individuals who have submitted maps will have an opportunity to continue to tweak these maps, right? You submit and they don't necessarily become final and locked, do they? But
They can submit as many times as they want, as many maps.
But they will be separate maps, not like the same, like on the record, they become separate maps.
They should be renumbered. Ty, do you want to confirm that? They're separate submissions.
Right. They're separate submissions. So users are not able to technically revise any submitted plans. They are able to submit as many plans as they would like, though.
And just as a reminder to the commissioners, Catalina can only be joined where there's a ferry. So in Los Angeles County, it would be either San Pedro or Long Beach are its 2 options. Just as a reminder.
Next, we have
Marina Del Rey. Sorry.
I do not believe there's a ferry operating from Marina Del Rey to Catalina Island.
Next, we have Next, we have Commissioner Stetcher.
Just one question. In the future, can you include not just the minority, whether there are minority, majority districts, but what the percentage of each of the major ethnic groups is in each of the districts? The stuff that comes out usually on the bottom of the map when you're creating it.
Absolutely. Today we were just trying to do a lot of things. And yeah.
Commissioner Bento.
You're muted, Commissioner Bento, if you are trying to ask a question.
I have no question. Thank you.
We have Co-Chair Carolyn Williams.
Yeah, I think you've already answered the question, but we're just looking at what was submitted, not whether or not they met the criteria. Am I right? The mapping criteria that we will be using to submit maps.
It could not be submitted if they didn't meet the minimum requirements.
So it did meet the minimum. Okay. All right.
These met the official requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Yes, thank you. I'm wondering, I know that there are some cities in here. So when we go into these submitted maps, we can go, when we zoom in, it'll show more of the cities, correct? So that, you know, we'll be able to see exactly where they're drawing the lines and if there's where they're splitting it. Okay, thank you. That's helpful. I just couldn't tell on these big maps.
Commissioner Jean Franklin.
I have no clarifying question at this time. However, I really appreciate the public beginning to submit maps, and I'm looking forward to a lot more maps coming through. Thank you.
Commissioner Holtzman.
When you say majority Latino district, are you referring to Latinos as a proportion of the citizen voting age population?
No,
CVAP?
total population.
Total population, okay. So when we're thinking about whether or not a minority has a fair shot at electing a candidate of its choice, won't we have to look at CVAP?
You may have to look at CVAP, you may have to look at VAP, but as far as redistricting is concerned, it's primarily total population.
Commissioner Kenny.
I have two questions. One is, what about we originally said that people could submit hand-drawn maps and other types of maps, and some people did do that. How are we going to be looking at those maps?
Even if they submit paper maps, they have to be converted into digital format because that's the only way we can evaluate if they are abiding by all the redistricting requirements and if they meet the maximum deviation, etc. So even if they are in paper format, ideally, they would still have to be converted.
So are you going to be doing that?
I guess. I mean, if I'm not sure, we are looking at digital maps, and that's what we are hoping that people would do. Okay. But if they don't, then we would have to sit on the application and make those districts.
Maybe the commission could make some kind of clarifying comment to the public about that, because there have been several maps submitted. The second question is whether you're going to be creating your own maps for our review, independent or using, what you've been able to learn from the communities of interest and the submitted maps. Are you going to create your own maps, or are you going to just ask us to adopt a map that has been submitted by someone?
What we will do is we are going to, as you can see, you're getting a variety of maps. We would try to group them. And based on the groupings, we would provide you with what we have received and how we have grouped. And then you as a commission can say that I like this particular group with these changes. So we would be happy to do those changes.
Okay, I'm sorry, Commissioner Kenny, are you finished? Okay. Co-Chair Daniel Maeda.
So my one question is, each of these maps have numbers, for the different supervisorial districts. Did each submitter number the districts, him or herself?
It seems like, they just picked a district and they just decided to define the areas and call them whatever this district they wanted.
Well,
See,
just to be clear, so each district, I'm sorry, each map is colored differently, has a different color, but also has a number. And my question is, did they number it themselves? Does one have to number the districts in order to submit them? I guess maybe that's the question. Or
Yeah.
The application offers 5 districts and they can pick whichever one and then they can pick the area. So 5 districts are predefined. They choose where that number is going to be.
Okay, so in other words, if I'm drawing a map and it'll say, where do you want District 1? And then I'll draw it. So wherever it is I start is District 1.
Yeah, like here, this is District 1. This is District 1.
Got it.
So.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Thank you. Commissioner Wong actually asked the question that more or less that I was going to. So, but am I to understand that if you zoom into the map, that you'll be able to see all the cities and neighborhoods that the various districts encapsulates, and secondly, is there a narrative to that so you can kind of read the list of the different cities that are part of a drawn district?
The narrative is there if the user chooses to provide a narrative. And I believe in one of the plans we do have a narrative, but it's going to be there if the creator of the plan decided to put it. As far as the cities goes, there is a layer that you can turn on in the application. So when you're looking at these plans, you should be able to see the cities.
Okay. So if I wanted to know, for example, I couldn't tell from the map, as an example, what district Cudahy or city of Cudahy was in, how would I determine?
That is an application. It's a part of the training where you can zoom in or you can identify a city and then the application would highlight it and then you can see as to if it is split or if it's wholly in one district. So that is something in the application training, you use the identify tool.
Thank you.
I think it might be helpful because of these questions. Once we finish the questions of clarification, if Ty shared the screen and showed you where the hub is and all the maps, or I can show it on my screen, so you can see how you can open them up and get the details. So once we finish the round robin, I think we should share that with the commissioners and the public.
Okay, I agree.
Next, we have Commissioner Apollonia Morales.
Yeah, I had a similar question as Co-Chair Mayeda, just I was confused by the numbering system, but now I get it. I understand it. I think my question is more specifically in terms of like providing a little more analysis in terms of the deviation. Because I think, if there's a scale from 1 through 10 or whatever it is, like how was that defined? How was that determined? And maybe I'm getting ahead of what it is that is ahead of us, but it would be helpful to have that analysis as well.
Maximum deviation is nothing else but the difference between the most populated and the least populated district. And the law says that the maximum deviation should be under 10%. So when we are looking at plans, one of the deciding factors could also be what kind of deviation does the plan have.
Yeah, and I guess that helps to understand that, but it's also what is that deviation by district? Like, are we talking tens of thousands of people? Or are we talking about 500 people? I don't know. It's helpful, especially when we overlay some of these concepts to see if it makes sense or not.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
Yeah, it's actually kind of good that to see the districts and these plans. I do want to know more detail because I like Cudahy, where does it actually fit in this? And those kind of little details would be good to look at for that purpose. So I'm hoping to see more details, definitely. That's my comment.
I just wanted to say one thing, that we have a training coming up. So that may be a good place for you all to come in.
Tomorrow at 11, I'll be giving a recap on it later too.
Co-Chair Williams, all the commissioners have spoken.
Okay, thank you. So do we have public comments, Ty, on this?
Yes, we do have one public comment. I believe, yes, we do have one public comment from Stuart Waldman. So Stuart, momentarily, you'll be able to unmute yourself. If you're comfortable, you may share your video. Once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute to make your public comments.
Thank you all. I drew Plan 4. The goal of drawing Plan 4 was a valley district, but I drew other parts as well. Part of our principles are keeping LA communities whole. So I would urge the commission to also include LA's communities, official communities, as part of the overlay, because it's definitely something that's helpful. The communities are there for a reason. In my maps, 90% of the communities in LA are kept entirely whole, and 90% of the cities in LA are kept whole. There is some deviation in drawing the district that we tried to make an African-American district, having to pick certain blocks to fit there. So having drawn those blocks, I sympathize with all of you on your task ahead. And thank you for volunteering for all of this.
I believe we have no other public comment on this agenda item.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm sorry, we just have a last minute one.
Okay.
So we have Karen Diaz from Churla. So Karen, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself. And if you're comfortable, you may share your video as well. Once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute to make your public comment.
Hi, good evening, Commissioner. This is Karen Diaz with Churla. I want to thank you for all the work that you're doing tonight. I just wanted to give you some considerations to think about as you begin this process of reviewing the maps, and is to do a research of like the BRA obligations for LA County. That is something that organizations that I have been working with on the ground and the demographers that we work with under our coalitions have been working as we do redistricting statewide and for different jurisdictions. And to also consider, as Commissioner, one of the commissioners brought up earlier is the CBAP. As you're reviewing the maps, I think as you're looking at the CBAP, it will give you an indication of whether the communities can select candidates of choice. I believe Commissioner Holtzman was the one that mentioned this, and not just to look at the total population of the maps. Thank you for your time and have a good night.
Okay. And then we have a hand from John Mendoza. So John, momentarily, you'll be able to unmute yourself. And if you're comfortable, you may share your video. Once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute to make your comment.
Last week, John Mendoza had trouble with his mechanical hand and it really wasn't being raised. Oh, there he is. Sorry. He made it on the screen this time.
So John, whenever you are ready, you can unmute yourself.
I did. I just unmuted myself right now.
Great.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I don't know if I missed it or not, but I was just wondering, when you show the different maps, does it show anywhere where some districts would be losing, in other words, you say you have three areas where supervisor districts for, Latinos, whatever. But I didn't see in the map, which ones they were. I live in Pomona, and I was kind of wondering what would happen in Pomona in those different scenarios. That's all.
Thank you. So we currently have no other members of the public who would like to make a public comment on this agenda item.
Okay, thank you, Ty. So the public comment is closed. We're now open to discussion, debate from the additional comments from the commission itself. Can we do round robin on this one too, please?
Okay. So in rotating alphabetical order.
I'm sorry. Before we do that, Gayla had mentioned showing the information on the maps. Why don't we do that and come back to the commission comments? Okay.
I think that would help. And these are just the first four. You should be getting more maps. Ty, do you want to share your screen or do you want me to share?
I can share my screen.
Okay, why don't you walk them through the hub so they know how to get to it and where the maps are. And also scroll down so they see the official submitted ones, the preliminary map submitted, then the COI, so they can find the COI information.
Sounds good. So I'm going to help navigate from the CRC website. So there's multiple ways of finding the hub. The easiest way is going to the top where it says making a redistricting map. From there, you can access all of the PDF maps, the mapping software, as well as different files, the mapping data and reference layers that folks can download and upload to their program of choice, including ArcMap, for example. But to get to the hub, it's the last option under the Making a Redistricting Map tab, view the public submitted maps and plans. All users who submit a map will get a confirmation email with the link to this hub as well. So at the top is the public submitted official supervisorial district maps. Again, is detailed where maps are submitted after the final data set has been uploaded to the mapping software. So here are the official submitted map, along with any descriptions the users have included with their submission as well. From there, we can, for example, click on the Explorer. It will take us to a page where we're able to see the map on a base layer like this. Users then can go ahead and zoom in to see where these different outlines are in terms of detail. But by clicking on any of these geographical units, these details will pop up as well, including target deviations, the total number of folks within that district as well, and what the user chose to label it in terms of the number of the districts. Other ways of viewing the data is just clicking on View Data Table, and it will just pop up what the users has chosen as the demographic variables they would like to include with their submitted map as well. So there's definitely room in terms of how we want to systematize the submission. For example, some users may not have included any of these particular variables at all. And if the commission would like, I can make sure that all of the submissions that are uploaded to the hub will have the same sets of variables for details for the commissioners as well as members of the public to view. So that's one way of viewing the submitted map. One of the questions that was asked, I believe it was from Commissioner Obregon, was how would we be able to tell, let's say, for example, if we were interested in knowing where Pomona was, how would we be able to do that? So the hub is limited in that sense where we don't have that function within the hub itself. The hub is more so a place to store for users to just view the map and to find the basic information. If the commissioners would like, we can think of other solutions for members of the public as well as the commissioners to explore submitted maps in a more detailed way with some more functions. Though again, there are some trade-offs in terms of having that as the only option, especially for users and members of the public who are not as technologically competent or literate. but those are some different options. Again, the other solution that commissioners can also consider is making all the submitted maps available on the software, shared with everyone, shared with the public, like how Preeti will be doing with her consolidated COI map. And so then this way, users, if they're interested, they can view within the software submitted maps and use the identify tool, for example.
Ty, just a clarification. If you zoom in further on this map, you don't get to the details, correct? You don't get to see community names and cities.
Correct. And so that depends on the base map that has been chosen. And so the base map that we chose for this hub is a simple gray one. Again, it's totally, the preference is to systematize it so it's consistent across all the maps. It's up to the commissioners. There are different opinions of whether too much makes it too busy for some user to view, and then too little might be too little information. So those are some things to consider, especially with different users and different preferences. So, I'm sorry, go ahead, Co-Chair Maya.
Well, so are you saying that this particular user didn't choose to show the base map with cities so that no matter how much we zoom in, we can't tell where the cities are?
So the base map is determined by the hub itself. So we choose one base map that will be shown across all submitted plans. And so when we were developing this hub, we chose this basic gray one just as a default. Again, we could change the base map to something that is a little bit more informative, but at the same time, it is going to be a little bit busy. I know in the beginning, commissioners had different preferences, for example, on having too much information, it was too busy and it wasn't viewable, versus having less information.
But when this user created this map, they were actually looking at things, including cities and communities and so forth, right?
Potentially. That's something we wouldn't be able to tell.
We won't know. I see. Well, I mean, it definitely, if we are not able, just as the case of Pomona, where is Pomona on this map? So there's no function for us to type in Pomona or the zip code to find it. And nor is there a way to zoom in. I say, I know generally where Pomona is. Let's see what district it's in. I zoom in, I still can't necessarily find it. Is that right?
Correct. Again, we can have multiple solutions to make sure that, again, for users who may not be as tech savvy, who have had difficulties with the mapping software, this hub would be an easier way for them to view these maps. But if the commission would like, we can also share into the software, like what Preeti would do with her consolidated COI map, the submitted plans, so that commissioners and members of the public would be able to view those submitted plans within the platform itself. And if the commissioners would like, I can show you an example of what that could look like.
Sure.
So this is the software. I have already uploaded one of the submitted plans just as an example. So you'll see here, so any users, any member of the public who's interested, they can open this up if it's shared to everyone. It would be a read-only file, meaning that they would not be able to make changes to the submitted plan. But what they could technically do is save the plan as their own and make tweaks and resubmit it. So in this case, you'll see here, this particular user submitted the map with these two only. And so if users or commissioners, if you would like, you can add additional demographics by going under the Create tab and then clicking on Demographics and then clicking on, let's say, for example, PL Adjusted, as well as CVAP Sum under Sum tab. What that will do is add all those additional variables in the data window. And let's say, for example, Commissioner Obregon, as well as Commissioner Mendoza mentioned before, they were interested in, like, where is Cudahy, for example. So how commissioners, as well as other users who may be interested in the solution, would be able to find that is by clicking on this arrow key here to expand the left side navigation window, going to the Identify tab here. From there, what commissioners would be able to do is first we would need to select the layer. So let's say we want cities and communities. So it looks like, and Preeti, if you are still there, you feel free to jump in, but it looks like this isn't an option for read only. We may have to actually save as a new plan to view those different options. So again, this is a solution we're still looking at, but hopefully what we'll be able to do is keep this as a solution. So for commissioners who may be interested, as well as members of the public, to use those tools as we stated before. So it looks like we may not have that option at the moment, but we can work on getting that done.
If you zoom in, won't we see what the submitter saw?
Right, if we zoom in, we can see, let's say, for example, Pomona here, right? So what we may want to do is, so all of these reference layer has already been chosen. But again, this is something that we can work on so that it becomes available sooner than later. But previously, any users would be able to use Identify once they were developing the tool. But again, this is a read-only file. Commissioner Wong, you have your hand up?
Yes, I guess I'm a bit concerned that we can't even evaluate any of these plans if we can't even kind of determine where the boundaries are, what the cities are. I mean, we definitely need to be able to know where, what cities are in the districts, and I can't, at any rate, it just is hard to read. So if you are going to include it, obviously it has to be included in this software, I assume. Otherwise, because the submitted plans don't have even this option, if you could make it so that we could, either put in a city and identify it, or, and I know that you say it's going to be too busy if you have all the cities, but somewhere, if we could see what the cities are that's included in these districts, it would be helpful.
Commissioner Franklin.
Yes, I am concerned as well as it relates to individual citizens that are not particularly involved in any neighborhood councils or part of city councils where they have their various redistricting committees. For individuals who are now just getting wind of redistricting, because I know in the communities that I'm involved in, I now see percolating interest about redistricting from just regular citizens. So I made a comment that I'm really looking forward to citizens submitting maps. Right now, we only have 5. Could it be that the software is a little bit complicated? Or, and I know this is a little bit too late to suggest this to Pretty, but there needs to be some sort of tutorial or maybe another workshop that we can offer. I know we had a workshop for the Spanish-speaking community, but I really believe, and maybe it's a little bit too late, but I'm just thinking about making sure that this is friendly for the regular citizens so that they're able to feel comfortable in submitting maps.
So Commissioner Franklin, we sent out a flyer last week. There's another training workshop that ArcBridge will be doing tomorrow at 11, and it will be recorded. I know we wanted to get one right now that the official mapping software had been released because we knew a lot of people needed a refresher from the one in August and September. But if you could help get the word out to your groups, we can certainly get them to the recording if they can't come tomorrow. And I have the link to share with you later, and it's also on our website under the meetings.
Just a question on the training, since we're talking about maybe upgrading the ability for people to identify cities. I guess will that be incorporated in the training? I guess it's going to have to be. Just want to make sure that it will be included in that training.
Pretty, I think one of the things you're going to start with was what the RDUs are.
This time we are going to talk about the RDUs. In the previous training, we talked about census geography, but now we are using RDUs.
Ty, can you go on down through the hub and just show, since Commissioner Kenny brought it up, where the maps that were submitted in September are posted, followed by where the various CLOI maps are that have been submitted?
Of course, I do see Commissioner Stetcher's hand up as well.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ty. Finish through that presentation.
1 second.
The other thing, since we only have the 4 maps, we have the emails of these individuals if we want to have them do a sharing of everything. So you have more of the information.
So again, on the hub, we organize them based on what kind of maps were submitted. So the first on the page is the public submitted official supervisor district maps. Again, this is any maps and plans that were submitted after the final data set, including the incarcerated population data, were submitted. After that, it's the preliminary supervisorial district maps and plans submitted by the public. And so these were maps that were submitted prior to the final data set without the incarcerated data population. Again, these are also including the 2 hand-drawn maps that we did receive. And it's the same way if folks are interested in diving into a bit more deeper into these maps, then just click on the explore. And then after that is the public submitted communities of interest maps based off of when they were submitted, as well. It includes the name of the user and then also the area that they had submitted the communities of interest on. And so those are there as well.
And I wanted you all to see that because that's where we could post the draft straw model from today's meeting. We could then post the revised one again as part of transparency. People could then also download it and play with it.
Okay, Commissioner Stetcher, you have your hand up.
Thank you. So I've submitted a map. Actually 2, and it wasn't just to show off, although it was partly to show off, but it was really because I wanted to understand what the process was like for citizens who were trying to work through it all the way to pushing the submit button. And you may or may not be inclined to do this yourselves. I'd encourage you to try it because it is complicated. The training gets you through the steps that you need, but the subtleties of picking little geographic areas and moving them from district to district to get the totals right are time consuming and tedious, and they can be frustrating. So I think it would be valuable for you to at least dive in and give it a try. I think we're stuck with the software at this point, and we should make sure we have fallback, which I think we do, for people who have questions. They can get targeted help in multiple languages. And I think it would be optimum if we could give the commissioners access to the submitted maps rather than just these sort of reduced form maps on the hub. That way we could drill down anytime we want and see where each of the geographic areas is located.
Rita, you're an expert on the ESRI software. Can you provide guidance on what is possible?
It seems like, the cities overlay, for some reason, I just went and checked, it's not working. So it may be a little quirk that we may have to work with ESRI, but the cities layer should be available. And you should be able to find a city, identify a city that is part of the software. It's just the way this particular layer is configured. So we'll have to just have a talk with ISD tomorrow.
Okay, so Esri, will you follow up with that Esri and ISD then?
Yeah, I will.
Okay, is that conclude the presentation? Then, okay, I found that helpful. I actually went in to look at the maps to see what was there and to go to the website. I'm also planning to do the training just to become familiar with it. Probably not to submit maps, but I want to learn and play with it and understand it better. And also, you can also just submit a map for one particular district. You don't have to do 5 districts, as I understand. So that we may start to see some of that, but these are the first people who were anxious and willing enough to submit maps. So we want to thank the public for that. So now we want to move on to open it up to round robin on discussion on the presentation and see what the commissioners have to say.
Coach, can we also discuss the item that Gayla brought up, which is, and also prompted by Commissioner Stetter's comment, that he has created some maps. And I know other commissioners have created maps as well. What should we do with those maps? Should we post them, as we get them, just like we would do for everybody else? Or should we hold back on the commissioner submitted maps until a later date? And, the pros and cons, of doing that. So I think that should be included in this discussion as well.
Okay. We're opening up for round robin.
Okay, so we will be starting with Commissioner Soto.
I think I am leaning towards holding off as to avoid influencing the public, because in essence we're saying they will be posted. There just maybe will be a more appropriate time for that to happen. Thank you.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
I submitted it because I thought as a citizen I had equal rights with everyone else. But I understand that we're in privileged positions and it's fine with me if we hold them off. In fact, maybe what we ought to do is include them in the batch of maps that ArcBridge or ArcBridge plus the working group are going to be clustering into groups for us, and then let them appear if they are representative of a particular group of maps that all tackle a similar solution.
Commissioner John Bento.
No comment at this point.
Co-Chair Carolyn Williams.
I agree that we all have the opportunity to submit maps. We are citizens also, and I agree that we should hold them back. I also just want to make note that as the discussion was saying, there were a lot of comments about how we could improve or what things to consider as we start to look at these maps. And I know Gayla's probably was keeping a lot of notes, but I just want to make sure we captured that as well as we talk about where we're headed with these maps.
Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I think I agree with the idea of holding back the commissioners' maps to a later time. I do think we should share them eventually and share them with the public. But I guess the timing I'm not so sure of, but we should let the public submit some maps, perhaps at the end of the month, in a couple of weeks. I do want to just clarify about what is going to be available for us in terms of being able to explore the more details of these submitted maps, because it is not clear to me. I am hoping that there was agreement that the submitted maps should be put into the software so that we could get the more detail, because obviously you can't zoom into the submitted maps and get any kind of information that would be useful. So I would, can we confirm that that is what's going to be done with those submitted maps so that we could play around with them? And it wouldn't well, and I guess then we would have to save it and then change it if we wanted to tweak with those submitted maps, but that's probably would be good for us to do anyway. So that's my main request.
Commissioner Jean Franklin.
No further comment.
Commissioner David Holtzman.
On the maps that have already been submitted, please post the associated shapefiles somewhere so that us technologically literate people can load them into the software and see them in better detail and perhaps think about just using one of them and making adjustments. On the hub, I just noticed that on the website nothing says hub, so please consider saying hub on that link if we're going to talk about it as the hub. And yeah, that's it for my comments on this particular discussion. Thank you.
Commissioner Mary Kenny.
Yes, I also submitted a map, and I expected that it would be made public and that perhaps it would be criticized. I didn't submit it with the idea that I was advocating that map. I submitted it as an experiment, an approach to the redistricting. So I would hope that I'm a little bit troubled that the committee is going to, I would like the committee to look at the maps submitted by the commission members. But I'm a little bit troubled that they're looking at information that's not available to the public. So that's how I come out on that. The other thing is that when you look at the 4 maps that we just looked at, it's really interesting when you try to actually do your own map, the trade-offs that you have to make. And you can see that in some of those maps, like one of them was very focused on the San Fernando Valley, and the San Gabriel Valley got completely ignored. And so you have to balance, trade-offs all over the place. And it's an interesting process to go through. I think I learned a lot going through that process myself. And then finally, my last comment is that to not be able to view the submitted maps in the same way that we can view our own maps as we're creating them, I honestly don't see how the committee can evaluate them, especially based on really just the bare outlines that are available now on the website. It becomes impossible because it's not like you're going to put in Cudahy and say, well, where's Cudahy? What you want to see is you want to be able to trace the outlines and see all the cities as you look at different areas of the map and see which cities are here and which cities are there. And we've all learned a lot about communities of interest. We can look at the maps and say, well, wait a minute, there's a community of interest that's being split here. but you can't do that just by putting in one city and finding out where that city is in a proposed map.
So we do have a hand from Preeti.
Yeah, I just wanted to address a couple of things, and that is that you can download the shapefile from the hub for all the submitted plans. And if anybody needs directions, we can help you with that. And second thing I want to say is that you can turn on the cities layer, just like we showed in training. And if you would like to see that, I can show it to you right now. You can see all the cities as a reference layer. You can see their boundaries. You can see the labels.
Well, Ty wasn't able to do that, so maybe you figured it out.
Pretty, why don't you show?
Okay, let me show that to you. See here. So here I'm seeing
For clarification, Priti, is this one of the submitted maps when you downloaded the shapefile? Or is this what you got from the?
No, this is just the plan. Okay, so here I can go under contents and I can turn on the cities and communities and I can see them, see the boundaries. So as I zoom in and I can identify a certain city, so I can simply click on it and it'll tell you what that's, it's right now at RDU. But if I change it to cities and zones.
Yes, but pretty my comment related to the submitted maps.
Oh, the submitted maps have to be shared with everyone for us to see it in the application. So just like when we go to open a file, and right now what Ty has done is he has shared the maps with me, the ones, then I can see the submitted maps. But that is something that Ty would have to share, and Gayla, Ty, and the commission would have to agree, as to if it's okay to share it with everyone.
I guess the question is, why wouldn't we share it with everyone if it's a publicly submitted map?
See, like this is one of the maps, that I'm just opening up. And this is from Clayton, plan number 2, that I'm being able to see. I'm being able to do anything that you would be able to do in the application other than edit it. So here I can go in and turn my, in my contents, I would just go to the reference layers and I'll make sure that my cities and communities are turned on. And then it just takes just a second to refresh. But yeah, if the plans are submitted, it's like a little toggle, so sometimes it just takes. So here you can zoom in. And
so Preeti, I might suggest just unclicking the layers that aren't necessary, again, because there are a lot of needs and a lot of different layers. It does take a while for it to load.
Yeah, because it's a web application, so we just have to remember that.
So what you're saying is we will be able, all of the maps that are submitted will be public, and you'll be able to go in and identify the cities and be able to do these kinds of analysis of the submitted maps. Okay.
If they're shared to everyone.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So with that, you can see all the cities, you can identify them, you can do with them.
So that's the issue, right? There's no can anyone think of a reason why we wouldn't share all the submitted maps to everyone? Because they're submitting them to the public, they're for the public's benefit. There's no privacy or whatever issues involved in this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's true that it looks a little bit more busy or complicated, but if the colors reflect submitter's boundary, then that's actually really helpful, because then you could see it very clearly. A city is being split, right? So I think that's actually a really good solution to me.
Yeah.
Commissioner
Etsy,
Kenny,
you can
agree
see.
this would be workable, right?
Yeah. Because how else can you can't evaluate it if you don't have that access to that information.
Let's do that.
Yeah, I think we are we all in I think we're in agreement that's where we need to go. I don't know if we need to vote on that or not.
I think we could just give direction to Preeti to make that happen. Make it so, as they say.
Okay.
So they'll then be in the everyone group.
One more time.
They'll appear in the everyone group, right?
Correct. So I can actually go ahead and do that now. So within the next 5 minutes, all the users should have access to the submitted plans.
Right.
Did we finish this the round robin discussion?
No, we did not.
Most important person is next.
So we have co-chair Daniel Maeda next.
Just joking. A couple comments. First, it would be helpful, I think, in addition to Commissioner Stetter's comment about wanting to see the more complete racial breakdown of the submitted maps, to also provide whatever narrative the submitter has. When they submitted it, sometimes they will say, this is what I'm trying to do with this particular map. I think that's useful as well. As to commissioners' maps, I think it's, I think it's fair to note that some commissions have decided they're not going to have their own commission or commissioners draw maps for reasons of not wanting to unduly influence the public or whatever other reasons. I do think personally that we shouldn't discourage people, as Commissioner Kenny said, and Commissioner Stetcher, and as we will all find if we try it ourselves. There are trade-offs, absolutely. And it's very useful, I think, to grapple with that fact. You can't have a perfect everything. Everything's not going to be perfect. You're going to have to make some choices. And I think that's useful. We're also the ones who have absorbed all of this community of interest input more than anybody else, right? So it'd be a shame if we're the ones who have the most knowledge and studied this to not then reflect it in some way in maps that we're thinking about. On the other hand, I do think there's a value, there's a benefit to waiting to post. We avoid, I think, potentially unduly influencing the public. We avoid the public, a possible public perception that we've already made up our minds, or maybe some commissioners have already made up their minds. Importantly, I think we can avoid locking ourselves into our own designs. Once we've done it, ours is the best. And if we wait, we see other people's. I think that's helpful. Also, if we wait, it enables us to, actually create our own maps in a way that reflects the best input that we've already received from other people. We may have a map, maybe we've submitted it, but you can always go back and adopt the same map and make adjustments to it. So our maps ultimately, I think, will be better, potentially could be better than if we were to submit and post right away. So I would vote to, I think we should wait to submit our own maps to the public, post them to the public at a later date prior to our selecting the final map options, but not too soon, I guess, is what I would say.
Next we have Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Thank you. At our last meeting, we voted on the manner in which these maps were going to be evaluated, and under the direction, I guess I'll call it that, of the lead Commissioner Stetcher. That group was working on that. Am I to understand that these maps are being brought forward at this very moment, or they still have to be evaluated?
Actually, let's have point of clarification. The actual leader now of the work group is Commissioner Hila Soto.
Okay, I missed that.
Which was not announced, and we should recognize him. These maps, we're just showing you every single map that has been submitted.
Okay.
And next Wednesday, we'll go through the next set of maps that were submitted.
Okay, so what is the process going to be then? Because it's seeming like we're doing the third option that we didn't vote on. We voted on the second option. So I'm a little bit confused about that. And then with regard to the maps that two commissioners have prepared, I think the sooner we get them out, the better, because another way to look at this is that we as commissioners are holding back and springing something on the general public. So that's another viewpoint. Yes, perhaps we're in a position of privilege, if you want to call it that. But I think information out sooner is better than later, and I don't think that there's going to be this bias or anything that would be necessarily negative. But that's my comment about that.
And just to address the work group had one meeting, and their focus this time was on the COIs, which you saw today.
Right. Okay. So in the future, what is the process going to be? Because there's a lot of talk about these maps, which I think is wonderful. But are we going to have a presentation under Commissioner Soto's direction to discuss what was talked about, evaluated, determined? Because initially we thought there was going to be a lot more volume there. Could very well be.
Right. So right now we did not have the volume. So we decided to have ArcBridge show you what has come in to date. But we are sort of preparing ourselves. If there is a larger volume, the work group should look at ArcBridge's homework of how they want to bundle the maps by themes before taking it before the full commission.
Thank you.
And we hope we get the volume.
Next, we have Commissioner Apollonia Morales.
Yeah, I think just in terms of the timing of commissioner maps, I think there was a proposed date of October 25th. And so, I don't know, I think that's a good date. It's not too soon, it's not too late, it's still part of the consideration. So I do think we have a lot of information to be able to provide as we're drawing these maps. And so, but it's also helpful to get input from the public in terms of how they are seeing this play out for them. So, I'm not, dead set on like we have to put them out there, immediately. We do have to allow for at least more folks to be able to submit their ideas to be able to better inform where it is that, some of us on the commission feel that we should be going. So that's kind of where I'm at on that issue. And everything else is, as long as we can see the cities, I can click on it, I can zoom in and be like, okay, they got that right, or they got this completely off, or that's not what we heard from the community, or whatever the case may be. All those have to be taken into consideration. I'm sure that's what the ad hoc working group is going to be doing, and providing us with the best analysis to be able to make a determined, educated decision on the final map. So yeah, that's all I got.
And then we have Commissioner Hila Soto.
I think I provided my comments earlier previously instead of asking a question, so it won't repeat it again, but I think hopefully we'll be able to refine those coin maps a little bit more. Of course, it'll have to be flexible and a bit nimble, but I think it'll give us some structure to further draw those and evaluate the submitted maps as we move forward. Thank you.
So all commissioners have now spoken.
Okay, thank you. I heard what sounded like agreement, but also not total agreement on how we want to handle the map submitted by the commissioners. Is there a motion on the floor? Because I want to make sure we have agreement or we understand where we're heading. So there. And maybe
I'd like to make a motion to hold the commissioners' submitted maps until October 25th, and then share it with the public.
Okay. Is there a second? Let's see, Co-Chair Maeda. Is that a second? Okay, so
Yes, sorry.
Thank you. So it's been moved by Commissioner Wong and seconded by Co-Chair Maeda. Can we just repeat the motion? And
Did you want me to repeat it again?
can you repeat it? So
Okay.
just for us to be
Yes.
clear. Thank you.
Yes,
Sorry.
I moved to postpone the public sharing of the commissioners' maps until October 25th.
Okay, so the motion is to postpone the sharing of commissioners' map until after October 25th. Okay. Are we ready for roll call? Ty?
I believe we have a hand from Commissioner Mendoza also.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry about
The
that.
question is there, no, is there any significance to that date or is it arbitrary?
The date was selected because we're looking at probably you working on the 26th, 27th, and 28th to develop your options. So we wanted them submitted as input to that process.
Understood. Thank you.
Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. I will now take roll call. Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
Abstain.
Commissioner John Vento.
Yes.
Co-Chair Carolyn Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Yes.
Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Yes.
Commissioner David Holtzman.
No.
Commissioner Mary Kenny.
Abstain.
Co-Chair Daniel Maeda.
Aye.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Move for approval.
Commissioner Apollonia Morales.
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
Abstain.
Commissioner Hila Soto.
Yes.
And Commissioner Saida Soto.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. I think we're complete with that. Is there a need for a break here, short break?
What is left, Gayla?
We have action item 6C.
This was to go over the data sets, which could be fairly brief, and then the executive director report.
So we
Could
try to
probably
power
wrap it
through.
15 minutes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Let's try to power through. Action item 6C, discussion about the data sets. You saw some of the data sets, or at least where you can find them, but we're going to have a staff report on this and with Gayla and Ty, and then we'll take clarifying questions.
Yeah, so the first thing I'd like to do is share the site where you have the description of all the different layers. And then I'm going to have you scroll down to the table.
So as mentioned previously, in the CRC redistricting website, under the Making a Redistricting Map tab, users can go down to download mapping data and reference layers. Here, any users or members of the public are able to go and download any of the available data sets in the software, especially if they are interested in using their own mapping software. So they can just use all these different reference layers as well as data tables and files as well. And then down here, we have additional files, including the configuration files used for the mapping software, as well as a data dictionary and any additional fields that were defined, including CVAP and socioeconomic variables. And then we have, I just added this as well, additional data requests from the public, which we can discuss today in regards to how we may want to form a process for any particular data request from the public, as well as anything that's provided by the public.
And that's what I really wanted to go over with you all now. What you have in the mapping software is what's required for redistricting, but we know we have nonprofit groups, demographers who want these additional data sets, which the county has provided. We have received some additional requests, which I'll go through. And I just want to make sure you're comfortable with criteria we use in terms of what additional data sets we might provide. Let me show you some examples. These are from the League of Women Voters and from one of your commissioners. There was a suggestion that environmental data be provided. So these were some links that we were given to add those to be available to the public. We were also suggested the League of Women Voters, since there were questions about housing affordability, to use this data link here. Climate change and life expectancy because of birth rates being affected by areas that had particular bad pollution areas, such as the lead acidic battery smelting. That was one of the examples. And again, I don't think we are being prescriptive that they must use them. We're just making them available. What we were thinking we would use as guidelines is if it's data that's published by a government agency, a university, a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization, we should be inclusive. The criteria for not posting would be obviously if it's a partisan organization. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention. You could decide you don't want to add any others, or we include them.
So we have a
I don't know if this is a big discussion item or not. I just didn't want us to arbitrarily start adding these data sets since they are unique.
We have a hand from Commissioner Stetcher.
Thanks. Will these be available indefinitely from the county on an archived website after the term of this commission is over?
The county is required to keep our website active for 10 years. So one reason why we have access to the 2011 website was it had to stay active through September, and they went ahead and paid for it for the duration of our time, for this year.
But then I think I agree, all the publicly available data from government agencies and NPOs should be made public and retained over the 10-year requirements.
So it would be just a link we would, put in the table. It would be up to users to decide.
So we're not actually archiving the data, we're just archiving pointers to existing data sets.
Right.
Okay. Co-Chair Williams?
My question is, are we getting any requests from the public for particular data, or
we had gotten some with the preliminary because we didn't have CVAP and some obvious ones up, but now those are part of the official database. These actually came in after the launch of the official.
Okay.
And there may be others. I just, wanted you to know what judgment we would use in terms of deciding what to post.
And I'm okay if we're following these guidelines and based on the requests that we may get from the public. Okay.
And then if there's something controversial, we can either take it to the ad hoc mapping group in the next 2 weeks, or we can bring it to the full commission. If it's okay, I'll just move on then in the interest of time.
We do have one public comment.
Oh, okay.
We have a raised hand from Bruce. So Bruce, momentarily, you'll be able to unmute yourself. If you're comfortable, you may share your video. And once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute to make your public comments. Bruce, if you're there with us, you can unmute yourself. And if you're comfortable, you may share your video.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I was actually away for a second. I guess it's too late since your deadline is the 25th of this month. But have any of you looked at the Los Angeles City redistricting software for drawing maps? because they seem to be very user-friendly. And they've had literally hundreds of maps submitted by the general public, I believe probably because they are user-friendly. And if you thought there was time to take a look at that, you might want to do that. But since you only have a couple of weeks left for submission, maybe not. Thank you. That's all I had to say.
And that's, I believe, is all. Oh, we do have one more from Grace Peng. Grace, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself, and if you're comfortable, you may share your video. Once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute to make your public comment.
My name is Grace Peng. I'm a director for the League of Women Voters of Los Angeles County. I cover the natural resources portfolio because I'm a physical scientist. And I was quite moved by the COI testimony about people who, there were repeatedly people who said that they belonged in a COI with people that had different races and religions, because they share the burden of pollution together, and that makes them a COI. And also, I wanted to say the same thing that Commissioner Maeda said, that we need to make sure that the people of the working class community of San Fernando Valley are not lumped in together with the NIMBYs of Malibu or Las Virgenes. Thank you very much.
And we do have a hand up and a hand down from John Mendoza, which I might think it's a same issue had in the previous weeks, but in case it is not, John Mendoza, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself. If you're comfortable, you may share your video. Once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute to make your public comment.
If it is related to this particular agenda item, please.
So John, whenever you are ready, you can unmute yourself. And if you're comfortable, you may share your video.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that my suggestion is that when you put the commissioner's map up, that you make it clear that it's individual commissioners only, and not as a body. That way, public perception is that, you know, the body has already made up their mind. And another comment I had was there's a lot of watersheds and so forth and government agencies. Say, for example, with the Measure W appointments to the board there, I was just kind of wondering, like in the future, when you have changes of you know, numbers and supervisorial district, what's going to be the, you know, if there's going to be any unintended consequences of any of those appointments throughout, you know, LA County. That's about it. Thank you.
And I believe that is all the public comment for this agenda item.
All right, thank you. Public comments closed. And Gayla, would you move ahead with your executive director's report?
Happy to. Actually, I see Commissioner Holtzman's hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I look forward to seeing Carolyn virus green data put into our redistricting software. As the League of Women Voters rep said, it's a good idea. There's a wealth of data in Carolyn virus screen, and it's all broken out by census tract, which is really good for our purposes. So I'd love to see that data, those data imported by census tract to our redistricting software. Thank you.
Shall I proceed with the update? So we had a press conference on October 7th at 11 a.m. You see the commissioners there on the days. It has stimulated some inquiries from the press. There have been some articles recently published. Univision has reached out to see maybe they'll be doing a story. The LA Times is working on a story. There was a story today in the Daily News. Carlos Delb is trying to line up a couple radio interviews now as further follow-up. So the commissioners did a fine job, and co-chair Williams and Maeda gave the overview along with Commissioner Apollonia Morales, who did a recap in Spanish. I wanted to remind you of our aggressive timeline, and I do want to make it clear to the public attending. I believe one of the speakers thought we are wrapping up our maps in 2 weeks. That is not the case. All we are doing is at the end of October, you folks will be coming up with what you think are options for further exploration. The entire month of November will be spent on getting additional input from the public and the public hearings. And again, you know your deadline's December 15th. Our timeline is different than the city of Los Angeles, who have a much shorter timeline. Very quickly, ArcBridge is doing training tomorrow morning, October 14th. The link is on the website. If you look under meetings, we've sent that notice and flyer out to the public as well. The Spanish training went very well. The 3 individuals who conducted it volunteered their time. They're GIS employees in the County of Los Angeles, and it is recorded and posted on YouTube and your website. And then finally, we have also posted the report on the impact of the adjusted U.S. Census data for the incarcerated population on our website as well. And it was part of the press kit. I want you as a commission to be marking off every Wednesday evening between now and December 15th. I would much rather have you have it on your calendar and we find out we don't need to have it than to have you find out we need to meet on a Wednesday and we can't get a quorum. These are going to be very aggressive meetings, I anticipate. Do plan on special meetings also on October 26th, 27th, and 28th. We may not need the 28th, but that's our outside window of coming up with the options. So we can post your options for 7 days and start the public hearings in November. Okay. And you'll be getting reminders by webinar for all these Wednesday meetings and these special ones. I want to remind everyone the month of October, the meetings will be virtual, and that wraps up my report. Oh, one more thing. I've checked with Dr. Jonathan Katz of Caltech, and we are planning to include him on the agenda for next Wednesday to share with you the analysis on racially polarized voting in Los Angeles County. So coming attractions.
Excellent. Anything further for the good of the order? Seeing none, we will stand adjourned. Thank you very much.
From Commissioner Bento and Commissioner Holtzman.
Okay. I thought I'd slipped it through, but okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Commissioner Maeda. I just wanted to say, everybody, thank you so much for everything you do. And I just wanted to thank Gayla and Ty and the entire staff. I think you guys have been just working really hard and take all the attention to detail. So I do really appreciate this. And Pretty, I appreciate everything you and your staff is doing as well. I know this is complicated. I know there's lots of information coming in, and I know sometimes these meetings can go long. And but I just really, really appreciate everything you have done, and your efforts don't go unnoticed. So thank you.
Not to mention, it's almost 1 a.m. over there.
It is. It is.
Commissioner Holtzman.
You're on mute.
You're muted.
I just muted myself. That was dumb. Partly because I too have 12:50 on my watch. For the good of the order, I just wanted to note that we've got a bunch of comments that are clearly intended to be for the City of Los Angeles redistricting, the LACD Council redistricting, and that we have no, as far as I know, warning on our website or any other way to tell people that they may be doing they may be sending their comments to the wrong place. Just thought I'd mention that.
Any other comments?
I just will point out, we have meetings and LA City is aware that all of our comments are made publicly available and they have access to it. Same thing with the California CRC, because we've also received information about assemblies.
Okay,
I was just trying to help those commenters get things to the right place.
anything else? All right, we stand adjourned. Don't forget to submit your tweaks or other information to Gayla no later than Monday morning, so she can provide it to the working group. But we've gotten a lot done today. Thank you very much for your patience, cooperation, goodwill. Good job.
Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Thanks.